narrative.
I still remember the moment everything fell apart like it was yesterday. It was our third wedding anniversary, a night that was supposed to be about celebration and love. Isabella had been unusually kind in the weeks leading up to it, almost as if she was trying to rebuild what had been crumbling for months. She said she was organizing the party to bring us closer together, and for a brief moment, I thought we were on the same page again. I let myself believe things could go back to how they used to be. The night started off well enough. Friends and family filled the room, laughing and toasting to our years together. Even her parents, who never hid their contempt for me, were being cordial for a change. Isabella looked stunning in her dress, smiling and mingling with the guests. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe we were turning a corner. But then he showed up, Alejandro, her boss. I had never met him before, but the way her face lit up when he walked through the door made my stomach twist. She immediately left my side to greet him, and they hugged like old friends catching up after years apart. It felt wrong. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just professional camaraderie. As the evening went on, I couldn't help but notice how often she gravitated toward him, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, standing a little too close. Every time I turned around, there they were, in their own little world. I felt like an outsider at my own anniversary party. Then came the speech. Isabella tapped her glass and called for everyone's attention, a radiant smile on her face. She started by thanking everyone for being there and reminiscing about the happy moments in our marriage. It all seemed so heartfelt at first. I even found myself smiling, thinking she was about to say something meaningful about us. But then her tone shifted. She brought up how much she wanted to have a child and how I had been resistant to the idea. My heart sank as I realized she was airing out our private issues in front of everyone. She painted me as the selfish husband who put his career and independence above her desires. I felt the eyes of the room turn toward me, judgmental and accusing. I tried to interject, to stop her from saying more, but she waved me off and continued. Her words became sharper, more personal, as she detailed how our constant arguments had worn her down emotionally. And then she dropped the bombshell. She spoke about Alejandro, how he had been there for her when she felt like I was not, how he had shown her kindness and understanding. She admitted right there in front of everyone that she had started to question our marriage because of him. Her exact words were, "Alejandro understands me in ways I never thought possible." I froze. I could barely process what I was hearing. The room was dead silent, except for her voice. She kept talking about how she felt neglected and unappreciated, but all I could hear was the part where she openly praised another man in front of me, in front of our families and friends. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly powerless. I could see the shock on people's faces, but no one said anything. They just stared at me, waiting for a reaction I was too stunned to give. My silence only seemed to validate her narrative. She ended her speech by saying that she had invested enough time in our relationship and needed someone who truly understood her. Then she raised her glass, as if this was some kind of twisted toast to her freedom. I could not move. I could not speak. I just stood there, staring at her, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I wanted to yell, to defend myself, to tell everyone how wrong she was, but the words would not come. It was like my mind had shut down under the weight of the humiliation. That was the moment everything changed. Not just between us, but within me. I knew, standing there in that awful silence, that nothing would ever be the same again. To really understand what happened between Isabella and me, you have to know about her family. From the very beginning, they were always there, looming in the background, quietly judging every step I took. Her parents, both doctors, lived in a world of privilege that I could never hope to match. Her brothers were just as successful, one an attorney and the other an entrepreneur. Isabella had been raised in this bubble of wealth and prestige, where expectations were high and failure was not an option. When we first started dating, I tried not to let their opinions get to me. Isabella would warn me about their elitist attitudes, telling me not to take it personally if they seemed cold. At first, it was just little things. Polite but distant smiles, backhanded compliments about my work ethic, comments about how lucky I was to be dating someone like their daughter. I brushed it off. I figured I just needed to prove myself. But proving myself was never enough. They made it clear in subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, ways that I was not what they had envisioned for their daughter. I was not from their world. I grew up with a single mom who worked tirelessly to provide for me. I knew how to stretch a dollar and prioritize long-term goals. To them, this was not admirable. It was a limitation. This became even more apparent when they started pressuring us to have children. From their perspective, it was simple. If we were married, we should be building a family. They were relentless, constantly dropping hints and making outright suggestions about the right time for us to have a baby. I felt like every visit with them turned into an interrogation. When are you two going to give us a grandchild? Isabella is not getting any younger, you know. We will help with everything. You will not have to worry. Isabella took their side without hesitation. She started pushing me as well, telling me that her parents were right, that we could depend on them financially if we needed help. But that was exactly the problem. I did not want their help. I wanted to build a stable foundation for us on my own terms. Accepting their money felt like giving them even more control over our lives, and I was not willing to do that. To me, their offer of financial support was not generosity. It was a way to remind me of my inadequacy, to underline that I could not provide for their daughter like they could. Isabella could not or would not see it that way. To her, I was being stubborn and prideful. To me, she was being dismissive of my perspective. The more we argued about it, the more isolated I felt. She started accusing me of being selfish, of not caring about her dreams of being a mother. But how could I explain to her that it was not about the baby itself? It was about the principle. It was about wanting to stand on my own 2 feet and not feeling like I owed her parents for the rest of my life. Her parents only made things worse. They never missed an opportunity to remind me of what they could offer that I could not. Her mother once told me, straight to my face, that Isabella deserved a partner who could meet her needs without hesitation. Her father chimed in with some comment about how men in their family always stepped up when the time came. It was humiliating, but I kept quiet because I did not want to escalate things. Over time, it wore me down. Every family dinner felt like a battleground where I had to defend my choices, my capabilities, my worth. Isabella would join in with them, either not realizing or not caring how it made me feel. She would laugh off their remarks or tell me I was being too sensitive when I tried to talk to her about it afterward. The thing that hurt the most was the double standard. I had made every effort to welcome her into my family, even though they did not come from money or hold prestigious titles. My mom treated her like a daughter, and my brothers adored her. But with her family, I was always the outsider, the one who needed to prove he was good enough, but never quite managed to. This tension became a constant in our lives, a wedge that grew deeper with every conversation about the future. The pressure to have children, to meet their expectations, to somehow earn their approval, it all became too much. Looking back now, I can see how it set the stage for everything that followed. It was not just about me and Isabella. It was about the impossible standards her family imposed on us, and the fact that she was never willing to push back against them. The cracks in our marriage were there long before that anniversary party. It was not like we woke up one day and everything suddenly fell apart. Looking back, I can see how the little things started to add up, turning into bigger issues that neither of us truly addressed. We would patch things up after arguments, sweep the unresolved problems under the rug, and pretend like everything was fine. But it was not fine. Far from it. One of the first signs of trouble was how we dealt with stress. Isabella and I had completely different ways of handling conflict. I preferred to step back, think things through, and approach problems logically. She was more impulsive, acting on emotions and often lashing out before we even had a chance to discuss what was really bothering us. It felt like we were speaking two different languages every time we tried to talk about something important. Take our arguments about her family, for example. I thought they were elitist and dismissive of me, and I told her as much. Instead of trying to understand my perspective, she would accuse me of being too sensitive or even paranoid. She insisted they had good intentions, that I was misinterpreting their actions. When I pointed out how her parents openly disrespected me, Like when her mother said I was lucky to have married Isabella, she would laugh it off or downplay it. That's just how they are, she would say, as if that excused their behavior. It was not just about her family, though. Isabella and I had fundamental differences in what we wanted from life. She came from a world where everything was handed to her, where money and status solved problems. I grew up watching my mom struggle to make ends meet, learning the value of hard work and independence. I wanted to build something for myself, for us, without relying on handouts from anyone, especially not her parents. But Isabella could not understand that. To her, my refusal to accept her parents' financial help was stubborn and irrational. She accused me of putting my pride above our marriage, of being selfish and uncooperative. I tried to explain that it was not about pride. It was about dignity, about feeling like an equal partner in our relationship. But no matter how many times I said it, she never seemed to hear me. Our differences extended beyond finances and family. Even in small, everyday things, we could not seem to find common ground. I loved spending quiet evenings at home, cooking dinner together, or watching a movie. Isabella thrived on socializing, throwing parties, and being the center of attention. What started as a fun dynamic when we were dating became a source of tension once we were married. She would get frustrated when I did not want to go out every weekend, and I would feel drained by her constant need for social stimulation. And then there were the arguments about children. It was not that I did not want kids. I did eventually, but I wanted to wait until we were in a better place financially and emotionally. To me, it seemed logical to make sure we had a solid foundation before bringing a child into the world. Isabella, however, saw it as another example of me holding her back, of prioritizing my goals over hers. She would say things like, "If you really loved me, you would understand how important this is to me." That hurt because I did love her, but I also knew that rushing into parenthood would only make our problems worse. Over time, these unresolved conflicts created a toxic cycle. We would fight, make up, and then fight again over the same issues. Each time the fights got nastier, more personal. She started saying things that cut deep, like accusing me of being emotionally distant or selfish. I started shutting down during arguments, withdrawing into myself to avoid saying something I would regret. I thought that by limiting our interactions, I could keep the peace, but it only made things worse. She saw my withdrawal as proof that I did not care, and I saw her constant need for confrontation as exhausting. Despite everything, I kept holding on. I told myself that every relationship had its rough patches, that we could work through it if we just tried harder. But the truth is, I was the only one trying. I made compromises, swallowed my pride, and tried to be the man she wanted me to be. But Isabella, she never budged. She never considered changing or even meeting me halfway. It was always her way or nothing. By the time we reached that anniversary party, our marriage was already on life support. We were two people living in the same house, but we were not really partners anymore. The love I felt for her was still there, but it was buried under layers of resentment, frustration, and exhaustion. I think part of me knew it was over long before she ever made that speech. But admitting it, letting go of the hope that things could get better, was something I just was not ready to do. Not yet. The silence after Isabella's speech was unbearable. I could feel every set of eyes in the room on me, each one silently asking the same question. What was I going to do? But I just stood there frozen, unable to process the betrayal that had just unfolded in front of everyone I cared about. It was the kind of humiliation that left you hollow, unsure whether to lash out or crawl into yourself. For a moment, I genuinely thought I was alone in that room. But then something unexpected happened. Her father, the man who had spent years silently looking down on me, stood up. At first, I thought he might offer some half-hearted attempt to smooth things over, a shallow excuse to salvage the evening. Instead, he looked directly at Isabella with a glare I had never seen before. His voice, usually calm and composed, came out sharp and cutting. "This is disgusting, Isabella," he said, his tone heavy with disdain. "What on earth were you thinking, doing this here, in front of everyone?" The room, already silent, somehow grew even quieter. No one dared move. Her mother sat rigid in her chair, her lips pressed tightly together. Isabella, who had been so confident moments before, suddenly looked unsure of herself. She stammered something about needing to be honest, but her father cut her off. Honest? He repeated, his voice rising. This isn't honesty. This is selfish, cruel, and completely unacceptable. I cannot believe I raised someone capable of this. I did not know what shocked me more, his words or the venom in his voice. This was the same man who had spent years undermining me, always making it clear that I was not good enough for his daughter. And yet, in this moment, he was standing up for me, or at least against her. I could see the anger boiling over in his face. Not just anger at Isabella, but perhaps also at himself for what she had become. Her mother followed him out of the room without saying a word, her face pale and distant. It was as if their presence there was suddenly intolerable. Her brothers, who had been watching in stunned silence, exchanged glances before one of them, Tom, spoke up. This is not okay, Isabella, he said firmly. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. The weight of their disapproval hit her visibly. Isabella looked around the room, searching for someone to defend her, but there was no one. Even her closest friends seemed hesitant to meet her gaze. One by one, people started to leave. The air was thick with discomfort, like the entire party had collectively decided that this moment was too ugly to be a part of. Plates were abandoned, drinks left untouched. Within minutes, the room was nearly empty. I still had not moved. I watched as her carefully curated celebration unraveled, as the spotlight she had so boldly claimed turned into something else entirely. What struck me most was how unprepared she was for the fallout. For all her planning, for all her confidence, it was as if she had never considered the possibility that her actions would backfire. As the last few guests filtered out, her parents' harsh words hung in the air. Isabella stood in the middle of the room, looking lost, her earlier bravado completely stripped away. For the first time that night, she looked at me, not with the defiance or coldness I had come to expect, but with something closer to desperation. I wanted to feel triumphant in that moment, to revel in the fact that her plan had fallen apart. But I didn't. I just felt empty. Watching her crumble did not make up for what she had done, for the way she had humiliated me in front of everyone. The damage was already done, and nothing her family or anyone else said could change that. Eventually, I found my voice. Pack your things, I said, my tone flat. I want you out of the house tonight. She looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Wait, we can talk about this, she started, but I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. You made your choice tonight, Isabella. Now you have to live with it. Alejandro, who had stayed silent throughout the chaos, stepped forward awkwardly to help her. Seeing him touch her, seeing her turn to him for support, was like a knife twisting deeper into a wound I didn't think could hurt anymore. I turned away, unable to watch as they left together. By the time they were gone, the house was almost completely empty, save for my mom and my younger brother. The silence felt deafening, but it was nothing compared to the weight pressing on my chest. It wasn't just the betrayal or the humiliation. It was the finality of it all. That night, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Isabella, about myself came crashing down, and there was no going back. A few days after that disastrous night, I was still trying to make sense of everything. My house felt emptier than ever, and while my mom stayed with me for a while, there were moments when the silence was unbearable. I had not reached out to Isabella, and I had no intention of doing so. To me, the chapter was closed, or so I thought. 2 days after the party, I got a text from her. At first, I considered ignoring it. What could she possibly have to say after what she did? But curiosity, or maybe something else, got the better of me, and I opened it. Her message was long, almost desperate. She claimed she had made a huge mistake, that she regretted everything, and that her actions were not as malicious as they had seemed. She wanted to talk, to explain herself. She even attached a screenshot of her resignation letter from her job, as if that would undo what had happened. She kept texting over the next few days, flooding my phone with apologies, explanations, and promises that she was willing to change. She said she had ended everything with Alejandro and was staying at a friend's house. According to her, the speech at the party was a misguided attempt to get my attention, to make me see how unhappy she had been. She admitted it was wrong, but insisted that she had acted out of pain and frustration, not malice. I did not reply. I could not bring myself to. Her words felt hollow, like she was scrambling to clean up the mess she had made. And honestly, I did not trust her. Even if she was telling the truth, even if the relationship with Alejandro had only been emotional, how could I believe anything she said after she had so willingly humiliated me in front of everyone? But she did not stop. After days of silence on my end, she showed up at my house one morning, unannounced. I was getting ready to leave for work when I heard the intercom buzz. Seeing her standing there, looking disheveled and anxious, immediately brought a wave of anger I thought I had buried. I wanted to tell her to leave, to never show her face again. But she insisted that she had a right to come inside, reminding me that she had paid part of the rent for the month. Technically, she was right. Against my better judgment, I let her in. The second she stepped through the door, she started crying, a mix of anger and desperation spilling out all at once. "How could you write those things to me?" she demanded, referring to the one message I had sent her after the party. "You made me sound like a monster." I stared at her, trying to hold back the tide of emotions building inside me. "Do you not realize what you did?" I shot back. "You stood in front of everyone we know and told them I wasn't enough for you. You humiliated me, Isabella. You broke us." Her response was a flurry of excuses. She said she had acted out because she felt abandoned, that my emotional distance over the past months had pushed her to a breaking point. She insisted that her speech had been a misguided cry for help, not a deliberate attempt to destroy me. "I wanted you to see how much I was hurting," she said, as though that justified anything. I listened quietly, letting her get it all out. But the more she spoke, the more I realized that nothing she said could change how I felt. She kept framing her actions as a reaction to my supposed shortcomings, as if her betrayal was somehow my fault. I told her as much. "You keep saying you were hurting, but what about me?" I asked. "Do you have any idea what it felt like to stand there and hear you praise another man in front of our friends and family? To hear you say you invested enough time in our marriage like it was some kind of failed project? You're acting like I'm the only one who made mistakes. But I was doing everything I could to hold us together while you were tearing us apart." Her face twisted with frustration. "I resigned from my job for you," she shot back. "I've been trying to fix this, and all you've done is shut me out." I shook my head. "It's not about your job, Isabella. It's about trust, and you broke it. I don't know how to fix that, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to." Her desperation turned to anger. She accused me of giving up too easily, of not caring enough to fight for us. "You'll regret this," she said finally, tears streaming down her face. "You'll realize you lost the best thing that ever happened to you." I did not argue. I was too tired to fight anymore. Instead, I opened the door and told her it was time for her to leave. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, I hoped it was. It has been a few months since I filed for divorce, and to be honest, the relief I feel is something I never expected. The process itself was quicker than I thought it would be, mostly because there were no drawn-out battles over assets or alimony. Isabella tried at one point to demand spousal support, claiming she had sacrificed her job for the marriage. But when I reminded her that I was prepared to expose everything that happened during the anniversary party in court, she backed off. I think the fear of embarrassing herself and her family even further was enough to make her let it go. Once the paperwork was finalized, I felt like I could finally breathe again. For the first time in years, my life felt like it was mine. The house, which had once been a space filled with tension and unspoken resentment, now felt peaceful. My mom had stayed with me for a while to help me through the worst of it, but eventually I told her I needed to face this next chapter on my own. She understood and left with a promise to visit often. Work became my escape during those months. I threw myself into my job with a focus I had not felt in years. The late nights and long hours were not just about keeping busy, they were about rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. And as strange as it sounds, I started to find joy in the routine. The sense of accomplishment that came from achieving small goals reminded me of the person I used to be, the person I had lost somewhere along the way. My efforts did not go unnoticed. Just last week, I got a promotion, a position I had been eyeing for over a year but never thought I would be ready for. It felt like validation, like proof that even after everything I had been through, I was still capable of building something meaningful. As for Isabella, I have heard bits and pieces about her through mutual friends. Apparently, she is living with her parents now. That does not surprise me. They were always her safety net, the place she ran to when things got hard. I also heard she is still unemployed, which means she is probably leaning on them for support more than ever. Part of me wonders if they have fully forgiven her for what happened, or if they are simply tolerating her because she is their daughter. I wish I could say I felt bad for her, but the truth is, I do not. I spent so much of our marriage bending over backward to meet her needs, sacrificing my own happiness to keep her satisfied, only to be humiliated and betrayed in the end. Now I feel like I am finally reclaiming the parts of myself I gave up for her. The biggest shift, though, has been in how I see the future. For a while after the divorce, I could not imagine what life would look like without her. Not because I missed her, but because so much of my identity had been tied to being her husband. But now I see it differently. I see the possibilities, the freedom to make choices that are mine alone. I have started reconnecting with old friends, picking up hobbies I had abandoned, and even considering traveling, a luxury I never had the chance to enjoy while I was married. There are still moments when the past creeps up on me, when I think about the good times we had and wonder where it all went wrong. But those moments are fleeting. More often than not, I feel grateful that it ended the way it did. As painful as it was, it forced me to confront the reality of our relationship and make a decision I should have made long ago. The funny thing is, Isabella told me during one of her many attempts to reconcile that I would regret leaving her. She was so certain that I would look back and realize I had lost the best thing in my life. But standing here now, I cannot think of a single part of me that wants to go back. The man I was in that marriage is not the man I am now. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. This is not to say I have everything figured out. I know there will be challenges ahead, and I am sure there are days when I will question my decisions. But for now, I am focused on moving forward, on building a life that is defined by my choices and not by someone else's expectations. And that, to me, feels like the start of something worth looking forward to.